Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We always come at you 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, off on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Remember the Sunday start sit show. I hate that it's on during an NFL game, but hopefully come by and ask your question. I'll give you the whys. You can make your best lineup decision. As always, on Saturday, we have John Ryan with us. I'll intro John in a minute. One more thing, if you have Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87, you can check that out today from 1 to 3. I'll be on with Mario Puig. Sunday, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern with Alan Soslowski. You can always rewind those in the Sirius XM app. John Ryan just continues to crush and get things done. He's with RotoWire and the Predictive Playbook Sports Channel. You can follow John at John Ryan Sports and the number 1. And again, he's almost 3 decades of professional sports bettor. And I tell people all the time, look who you're getting your gambling advice from. Is it somebody that's a casual? A lot of times that's what we see out there. Probably not the best course of action. Some people can get lucky for a period of time, but you want to follow documented winners. And John, 10-unit bets last 4 years, 68%. Like John tells you, they lose 32% of the time, but they win well more than the 52.5% you need to make money. Also, the last 3 years, not just in 4-unit bets, NCAA football, pro football, 65%. John Ryan, documented winner. John, how are things?
Things couldn't be better, Jim. You know, being in the Philadelphia vicinity, in the metropolitan area, with the Phillies doing what they're doing, and football in full gear right now, it can't get any better.
Oh, it's a fantastic time of year. And after this week, we'll be 1/3 of the way done with this 18-week NFL season. John, Cleveland Browns, no Deshaun Watson in this game. The line moved from about 5.5 to +10. They're playing the 49ers. So certainly that Browns offense would be a little compromised. Defensively, they really have come out of the mission. Jim Schwartz has a number of good pass rushers. They have 3 good cornerbacks. This is going to be a really fun matchup against an undefeated 49ers team that is taking the league by storm. This is played in Cleveland, so it's always a little home field advantage there. How are you breaking this game down, John?
I hate using the word trap game very often, Jim, but I think this is one for the 49ers. It seems like every week with the Eagles and the 49ers, they're in a so-called trap game where they could fall short of expectations. But this one seems to be pretty real to me. The Browns are coming off a bye week, and they really need to start getting the wins in the column. And this would be a very good one for the confidence building of the entire team. Now, there is questions on who's going to be quarterbacking going into tomorrow's game. Always remember with these plays, whatever the number is, the injuries, the players that are out, the players that are now listed in, is all baked into the number. That is the presumption I make. It's much like Apple computer stock. You look at the price of Apple, and everything we know about Apple, any news, expectations, is baked into that price. And that price reflects everything we know. So I like the Browns no matter who is under center in this game. And I might actually like them better if the line creeps up a little bit higher, making them a higher dog with a backup quarterback under center. That would make it even more juicy to me, because then the letdown factor for the 49ers might be a bit high, because they know the offense isn't going to be what it's supposed to be or expected to be by the Browns. But anyway, there is a system here. We're going to bet on home underdogs facing a foe, as you said, Jim, that's dominating the league by storm. So facing a foe that defeated their opponents by an average of 10 or more points per game. The foe is coming off a double-digit win, which they destroyed the Cowboys 42-10 last week. That set of parameters has gone 60-24 with one push. That equals 71% winning bets over a 10-year period. Not one of those 10 years, Jim, lost money. So I like this Cleveland Browns quite a bit. And there is a subset that gets even better. If it's a non-divisional matchup involving a dog of 4.5 to 7.5 points, all the big numbers are in that query of 4.5 to 7.5. 10-7 straight up are these dogs. 13-4 against the numbers, 77% last 10 seasons. I think the Browns might surprise some people this week.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Defensively, I really think they can give Brock Purdy some issues. And I know we said Dallas might be able to last week. I didn't really come out the way. I did think Dallas blew a tactical advantage. The one thing Dallas did not do, they should have put Micah Parsons over on the side with right tackle Cole McKivitz all day long. Every down, they should have allowed him to terrorize McKivitz. And yet frequently we saw him on the side with left tackle Trent Williams, and you're not getting past Trent Williams. And I think they really just overthought this one. But the Browns are going to be able to massacre McKivitz because it doesn't matter who they're doing, whether it's Myles Garrett, Ogbo Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith. They are going to have a massive advantage there. Their run defense has been much more stout this year. John, I see this being a very low-scoring game, and that's why I think, obviously you have the trends and you're the professional bettor here, but just for the way I see the game shake out from an NFL standpoint, I just don't think there's a lot of points scored here. I think there's a very low-scoring game. The only thing we worry about is if the Browns turn the ball over deep in their territory a couple times. But I think at least P.J. Walker may not be good, but he's not Dorian Thompson-Robinson bad. So I think that's going to help them, right? And I think there's enough to be said for that. But I think this is a very low-scoring game. Yeah. So, all right, that's a great call on it. So we're going the Browns plus 10 against the 49ers. John gave you some wonderful trends, and that's the thing. John brings this to the table. This is not what you're getting from people just throwing out picks. Little of this, little of that. John has documented trends that you can utilize to your winning advantage. All right, let's talk some DFS players this week. Last week was the first time our low price guy did not hit. It had to happen at some point. You can't have a low price guy hit every, but Ryan Tannehill, it did not work. We held our nose, and unfortunately, the stink still got in. All right, so this week, Trevor Lawrence, we'll go quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence is 6,500 at home against the Colts. These teams played in week one. Trevor Lawrence was able to get Calvin Ridley off to 100 yards and a touchdown, most of it in the first half in that game, but it wasn't a big fantasy game. But here's the thing. We look at a lot of divisional matchups and we say, okay, it's tighter the second times around. These teams know each other. I look at this game a little bit differently. Indianapolis does not have defensive backs capable of hanging with the likes of Evan Ingram at tight end, Calvin Ridley, and Christian Kirk. They just do not have the horses. And Jacksonville's problem was frequently players dropping passes, a little bit of off timing. They're starting to turn the corner. Indianapolis does not have much of an ability to provide much resistance there. Their pass rush is okay. So Trevor Lawrence is the one you like, 6,500 against the Colts. This should be a very good ceiling game for him here. Also, Matthew Stafford is 6,100 against Arizona. Arizona gets very, very little pressure. They're still without their safety, Budda Baker, and their corners are way below average. And Matthew Stafford has been playing at a very high level this year, getting the ball out quickly. We see it every week. Now with Cooper Kupp back even. Obviously, Puka Nacua is open all day. Now Kupp is open, and they are not going to have any way to slow them down in any capacity. And this is a team that's going to be happy passing the ball. The Kyren Williams will run the ball at times for sure, but Sean McVay wants to pass the ball. That's the nature of his offense. It's humming right now. There is no reason to shy away. 6,100 is a cheap price. Obviously, Stafford doesn't run, but the 300 yards definitely in play. 3 touchdowns definitely in play. Great week for him. Baker Mayfield, 5,200 against Detroit. Mike Evans is cleared of the hamstring injury. Baker Mayfield has been playing extremely well because offensive coordinator Dave Canales is dialing up a league-high rate of play action. What the play action is allowing is giving Mayfield an extra moment to read the defense. The defense kind of has to freeze in the play action, and that it has been a successful tactic that great coaches have used. And with Mayfield having 2 elite receivers at his disposal, that extra second to process is really making his life very good right now. Detroit is likely going to score their points. This game could be high scoring. And Mayfield coming out of the bye, I still believe that with the offense he has around him in the play calling, he's going to continue to be a successful fantasy option. The cheapest I could go this week was 5,200 for Josh Dobbs. I stayed away from the guys that were complete like Gardner Minshew. I don't like him because when a team can actually prepare for him, a lot of times he does well, but he comes in game and there's no game plan for him. So I'm leaving him out. Josh Dobbs, same game with the Rams. So if you don't like Stafford at 6,100, Dobbs is 5,200. The Rams, yes, they have Aaron Donald, but the pressure rate has not been great. The offensive line, Paris Johnson, left tackle, overall has been playing much better than we expected. Dobbs has run for over 30 yards in the majority of his games. Marquise Brown playing at a high level. They are able to get the ball moving with Dobbs as a runner and through the air. So Dobbs in a shootout game where they're playing catch up, no James Conner, so they're not going to be able to run as much. They're going to have to lean on the pass a little bit more, or if it's running, it's Dobbs running. I like those. Got a few people here. Anthony likes Calvin Ridley in a smash game. Joseph, Zay Flowers or Garrett Wilson in the flex. You know what? Zay Flowers is a great matchup, and I know he's a screen pass king, but Tennessee really has no answers in the secondary. Garrett Wilson is just a matter of his quarterback. I'm going to say Zay Flowers in this one. Sauger, welcome. All right, I'll give you a few running backs before we get to John's second pick. I'll give you 4 of them. Ken Walker is 6,700 at Cincinnati. Walker gets a very good workload. Charbonnet cuts in a little bit, but Walker is still bordering at 15 carries a week. Now, Ken Walker is playing a Cincinnati defense we used to hold in very high regard against the run. This has not been the case this year. They are very vulnerable to the run. Their defense is just off overall. Lou Anarumo could come up with the occasional game plan that surprises us, but it hasn't been against the run this year. Sometimes they'll scheme up a blitz like against Matthew Stafford. They did that well, but this is a team you can run on, and Pete Carroll does like to use his run game heavily. And even if this game shoots out, Walker is in good shape to cash. Now, this player's been horrible all season. I think this is the last time we could give him a shot, but the salary kind of adjusted. Ramondre Stevenson's 5,400. He's still getting a lot, like almost up to 15 carries a game. He's getting a few targets. The offensive line is garbage. He has not been getting 3 yards a carry, but they're playing the Raiders. The Raiders are coming off a Monday night game where they played a little over their heads. I thought Green Bay's not very good, but fine. And the defense still, it's a defense that has a lot of holes in it. And New England, they're not going to want to put this on Mac Jones' shoulders. Right now, I don't think they have much faith in the passing attack because he has no explosive weapons. Stevenson in this game should get in the end zone. He has a good chance to get you 90-plus yards, and he could get a few catches. So I think he's a good play. The next one I had listed before Miles Sanders is out. I thought Chuba Hubbard was a good play even with Sanders at 4,300. And now Hubbard's going to be the lead back in this game. Raheem Blackshear probably gets some reps. But at 4,300, I like Hubbard because it's most likely that Miami plays with a massive lead in this game. And both safeties are out for Carolina. They're missing J.C. Horn, who's been in the IR. Miami's going to put up a lot of points here. Chuba Hubbard is the receiving back. Miami can bring some pressure. Morning, Charlene. So we're going to see some screen pass. Hubbard's going to eat in the passing game here, and he has a chance to score 4,300. The last one, Alvin Kamara is 6,800 against Houston. Houston made a big tactical error last week. They're very good against the pass, but when they played Atlanta, they said, you know what? We are going to sell out to stop the run because that's what they do. And when they did that, they got torched by Desmond Ridder through the air. They're not making that mistake against Houston. They are going to, against the Saints. Houston is going to play them straight up, and Alvin Kamara is going to be between receptions and yardage. This is a great game. Houston is still not a good run defense unless they oversell to stop it. They're not going to do that here. Now, I didn't mention Deontay Foreman, and certainly you can use Foreman here. Foreman is an excellent running back. And the Bears are down 3 running backs, and they brought in Darrington Evans, who will get some work. But Deontay Foreman, 2 years ago, he took over for Derrick Henry with a broken foot, and he did extremely well in Tennessee. Last year, after Christian McCaffrey got traded, he was extremely effective with the Panthers. Against Minnesota this week, Minnesota's a pretty good run defense, but they're not world beaters. And Deontay Foreman is a strong physical runner, and he's got something to prove right now because he's got to be ticked off. He signs his free agent deal, and he's inactive every week. He's fresh. He's a great runner, and I think he could be a strong play for you. All right, John, I rambled on a bit there, but I wanted to get those picks out. John, second pick for you today. So big game. You're in the Philly area, and you talk about everything going on there. The Eagles are 5-0. They're at the Jets. Jets have been pretty solid defensively at home this year, which has been very nice to watch. But the Eagles are, at this point, do you have a 7-point or 6.5-point favorites?
I have them as 6.5, actually.
6.5. That's what I have here.
So
tell us about this game.
Well, I think this is one of those trap games, and I hate using that word, as I said about the 49ers, but the 49ers and the Eagles are the only 2 remaining undefeated teams in the league, and justly so. This has not been a fluke that Philadelphia is 5-0, and certainly not a fluke that San Francisco's 5-0. The way I see the league right now is you have San Francisco and Philly, and then there's a big gap in the NFC down to what I have is a Detroit Lions team that's on the rise, but nowhere close to the quality of play that these 2 teams are bringing each week. So now we have a Jets team, and I was hoping that they would turn the corner, invest some time into their quarterback, Zach Wilson. He's now looking better. He actually outplayed in QBR against Patrick Mahomes head-to-head, and that seems to be maybe a pivot point potentially, and I hope for his sake in the Jets in his career. However, this is a very difficult game. It's really not a road game for the Eagles because I can guarantee you with the enthusiasm generated from the Philly fans, and they're also Eagle fans that are the same. They cheer for both teams. They're going to take that trip up I-95 to MetLife Stadium, and it may sound more like a home game for the Eagles than a home game for the Jets. So that's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. I do think Philly is going to come away with a win, and I do think the two defenses are very, very good. Again, I would put the Jets defense probably ahead of the Eagles, but not quite ahead of the 49ers. But three of the best defenses in the league are those three teams. So I wouldn't be surprised, Jim, if at the DFS DraftKings you would say, boy, I like the Jets defense or I like the Eagles defense, but maybe they cost too much money too. We'll have to wait and see what you have to say about that. But Philadelphia here, I like this system because you have Philly coming off of a significant road win last week against the Rams. And now you're going up against that Jets team that is coming off an upset win. You know, they have the seem to turn the corner, like I said. But so you have a team that is playing very well against a team that may have just, overperformed their norm. And I think that is the Jets. So we're going to bet against dogs, including Pick'em, off an upset win by 10 or more points as an underdog and facing an opponent off of a straight up road win. That has gone 63% over the last 40 seasons. 40 seasons in the database. So, yeah, 117 wins, 65 losses against the number since 1984. I think there was a book written back then too, wasn't there, Jim? 1984, George Orwell, I think.
Yes, there certainly was.
But anyway, I do think the Eagles are the best bet here. Don't be surprised, live in-game bet too, if the Jets take a 7-0 lead. The scoring volatility this season, the last 3 seasons, has been unprecedented. So there's no reason to bet all your money pre-flop unless you're not going to be able to watch the game. So take half your money and bet Eagles pre-flop if you like this pick that I have. If you don't, then take if you don't like the Eagles, then my live in-game doesn't make any sense. But if you like the Eagles, bet half of it pre-flop and then look for the Jets to score first in the first half, or retake the lead during the first half of action and then bang out the second half at a much, much better price.
Oh, see, again, I always tell you this, John Ryan, not just giving you the best picks, but also telling you how to be a smarter, better, utilizing in-game betting to your advantage. Those are little tips of the trade that very few people possess and are able to utilize, but definitely, hopefully you're learning from John Ryan. And again, he gives you the Eagles 6.5 to beat the Jets in this one. Now, a little more DFS here. Wide receivers. Calvin Ridley. We went with Trevor Lawrence. We're going to go with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley had 3 bad games, weeks 2, 3, and 4, but in the opener against Indy, and most of it in the first half, he had 92 and a touchdown in the first half, ended up with like 110 or something like that in the opener, but not a good second half. But last week, we saw him re-emerge against Buffalo in the London game. And I do believe that with the success that they had, Ridley and Lawrence against Indy the first time, I think they're going to utilize those staple components. They're not going to go away from him. And they realize he's a great opportunity player to help them move the chains, put points on the board, and then open up their other players in the offense. And really, it should start with Ridley. And I think they're going to start to figure this out as they showed last week. Now, I know he's coming off an eruption game, so he's like, oh, of course, John Rubright, welcome. DJ Moore, 6,500 against Minnesota. There might be some really ugly weather in this game. I'm not worried about it. DJ Moore has shown us he can win on flat passes, screens, slants, He can go downfield. If the weather is an issue, he is going to see the targets. He is commanding a very high target share since week 1. And what will happen here is Minnesota. So defensively, they don't have corners that can cover. They know that. So what are they doing? They're dropping some bodies back into coverage, but they're blitzing at an extremely, extremely high rate. Well, what that means to me is you got to get the ball out to the hot reads. The wind does not impact these short passes. And DJ Moore's going to have a big chasm of space to run after the catch. And remember, with the ball in his hands, he's a legitimate running back type player. He can run around you, through you, by you, over you, whatever it takes. DJ Moore has that rounded skill set after the catch. He didn't show it last year because the passes were so many passes were behind him in Carolina. But what he did the prior 3 seasons, what we've seen already this year, that is the DJ Moore. At 6,500, that is a major value for a player who could easily go over 100 yards and get in the end zone. That's a great play. Brandon Ayuk, this can be a counterintuitive play. 6,200 at Cleveland. Look, we know Cleveland's going to be an extremely tough defense here. Kyle Shanahan has faced Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, on many occasions. Kyle Shanahan's offense has had a good enough deal of success. They do scheme players open extremely well. Brandon Ayuk is playing at an incredibly high level. People are going to see this matchup and see the pass rush is crazy. The corners are playing extremely well. Ayuk can win here. Ayuk can win on in-breakers, yards after the catch, schemed into space. I think the contrarian play of Ayuk is a strong one here. This is the week you're going to look at it and say, oh, it's a lemon week. This is the week they're going to need him because of the pressure that is going to be generated by Cleveland. Last one, Marquise Hollywood Brown, 5,300 at the Rams. We said earlier, and by the way, you can go with either of the Cooper Kupp's very, very highly priced up. Puka Nacua is a little more reasonable. Cooper Kupp, he was missed on a couple deep passes. There were a couple timing things that will probably be back this week. So if you want to go heavy on that game, I'm suggesting Marquise Brown. If you really want to stack that game up, you could put Cooper Kupp and pay up for him. Marquise Brown is 5,300. He has done nothing but score touchdowns and put 50 plus yards up on each week. Well, the Rams, they are not a good coverage team, and they are not getting great pressure. And with James Conner out, they're going to need to rely on Marquise Brown even more heavily than they have. And the Rams just don't have that takeaway corner to deal with him and his speed. And the chemistry he's shown with Josh Dobbs is very real. Charlene asked a question about Brandon Powell with Jefferson up. Brandon Powell will play the slot. The slot will see about 70% of the action for them. Now we're expecting a high wind game. So realistically, the slot routes for Brandon Powell could be fruitful. But I'm not going to project him at more than 5 catches for 45 yards just because he's a good player. He's nothing special. Now, the Bears are terrible defensively, but I don't know how high volume this game gets. I think this is a game where neither team feels the need to be in shootout mode. And I do think that the potential weather tampers it down a bit. But I think Brandon Powell is going forward, like I said, his role in the offense, he'll be the clear number 3. And TJ Hawkinson also works in that area of the field. But Powell is going to cap out at probably 10 fantasy points PPR in games. His floor should be 6 to 7, though. So he's in that tight range. If he scores, he goes over. All right, let's go for a few tight ends here. I know we had the big week last week. Again, we're not piggybacking off of this. Dallas Goedert has seen targets in 2 of the last 3 games. They've gone up since the opener. He's 4,800 against the Jets. The Jets have Sauce Gardner on the outside. They're very good defending wide receivers. The middle of the field has been a very, very fruitful place to attack this defense. Dallas Goedert is on track now. They are going to need him in this game. The pass rush that the Jets can get going is substantial, and that means the middle of the field passes could be higher volume than usual. So Dallas Goedert, Logan Thomas, 3,500 at Atlanta. We keep talking each week how he's getting targets. He's productive. He's used in the red zone. Atlanta has not been solid against tight ends. They've been getting pass rush, and Sam Howell does not do well with pass rush. So getting the ball out to the middle of the field. It's why we see the wide receiver Curtis Samuel doing well, Thomas doing well. The middle of the field is where they need to go. Thomas is really cheap. The last one, the cheapest. Tyler Conklin, 3,300 against the Eagles. Tyler Conklin has had 5 or 6 targets in each game that Zach Wilson started. Only one of those games did he go under 50 yards. So he has been a solid 4 or 5 catch, 50 or so yards each week. He's eventually going to get in the end zone too. So that's it. And then defensive and special teams. Look, I don't know how this all works out. But I always try to give you a punt the money. If you want to spend up, you already know who these defenses are. The Browns 2,200 against the 49ers. If they can force Brock Purdy into a couple of mistakes, get a few sacks at 2,200, you don't need a lot to cash. And if it's a lower scoring game, like I think, this could be beneficial. If not, the Bucks 2,300 against the Lions. Todd Bowles is going to blitz a ton. Jared Goff is amazing at home. Not quite the same on the road. There can be games where he is a little bit off. And I think the blitz pressure he's going to see, you could get this crazy pressured pick six that happens, and that could be plenty to cash at 23. And then finally, the Texans 2,900 against the Saints. Look, if we get Derek Carr under pressure, he's in trouble. The Texans can generate some pressure. And I do believe their pass defense, they go back to what they usually do, not last week, and they played the pass. New Orleans is going to scuffle a bit there. 2,900, they're a mid-range price that you can have there. John Ryan, we have another pick coming up here. Monday Night Football. Everybody's excited, rightfully, about this one. Cowboys coming off the pacing to the 49ers. The Chargers coming off the bye. Chargers finally got a couple of wins, so they keep themselves at 2-2. They're in contention, at least. We're excited to see what's going on. How do you handicap this game?
Well, this game here, I as you may remember preseason, Jim, I was big time bullish on the Chargers to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. That really hasn't changed. They stumbled out of the gate 0-2. They managed to hang on to a win against Minnesota, where Minnesota had the ball in the red zone twice in the fourth quarter and failed to execute. But that seemed to have turned things around. We're getting a team now that is underpriced going against a team that everybody and their brother is betting on the Dallas Cowboys right now, with 70% of the ticket number being bet on them. But Jim, it's only 52% of the handle, which means the total amount of money that's bet on this game. Now we have 3 days to go essentially till Monday, but I don't think those percentages are going to change. And if anything, one of the problems with betting, especially new bettors, and this is a cautionary thing, is that what happens to a public bettor if he loses Saturday and Sunday, Jim? He jumps on the window on Monday, right?
Yep.
and just don't try to win it all back in one fell swoop. It's better to grind it out like Jim and I do every single week. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, and over the course of the season should be your goal. Not betting it all to just say, I'm broke even on the weekend. That's great. But it was a dumb bet, even if you win it, to try to win it all back in one fell swoop. So with this Monday night game, I have bet this game already, 50% of my normal bet size. So again, I'm going to look for some volatility here. I really have a lot of questions about this Dallas defense, Jim. I know we were talking before we went on the show about Micah Parsons basically not being lined up in the most optimal position and in that 49ers game, and I agree with you. And Dak Prescott continues to underperform my expectations. I constantly, every single week, I think, all right, this is the week against the 49ers. We're going to see the real Dak Prescott, but we don't. And this, I put Justin Herbert ahead of Dak Prescott in my quarterback rankings by quite a bit. And he's got some great weapons there in the slot receiver that can cause problems for the Dallas linebackers. If you bring Parsons off the edge, you throw into that blitz, and that's the best thing to do. We saw Tom Brady do that for like 55 years, I think. Throw right into the face of the blitz, and I think that's what Herbert's very good at doing. So I do like the Chargers here. I think they're going to outgain them yards per play, and when the Chargers do that, they hit 77% against the spread in their home games, and they're coming off the bye. It's early in the season, maybe not nicked up like they would be later in the season, but they are rested. Dallas is coming off a humiliating loss that has to question the team, like, how good do we think we really are, or are we just an average team now? So I'm going to go with the team with the confidence and the leadership with the Chargers here. And I do like the under in this game too, Jim, and that's supported by a pretty good betting system I have here. We are going to bet the under in any game with a total greater than 49.5 points. We certainly have that in a game involving teams that are averaging more or less than half a yard per play than their opponents. So they're the middle of the road in terms of yards per play against their opponent. That set of parameters, 184, 110 since 1984, 62% over those 40 years, just simply grinding it out week by week. And you win some, you lose some. 37% of these games over this 40-year period went under by 7 or more points. That's also pretty powerful stuff. So again, live in-game, 50% pre-flop, then look for something in the upper 50s during the first half. But no matter what you do, have a plan in place to do the live in-game betting, both college football, NFL, NBA, college hoops, and you'll do fine. Don't use it to hedge what you think is a bad bet or a gut feeling. Always have the plan before the game starts.
You're right. You cannot live on emotion. Emotion will empty your pocketbook very, very quickly. Now, one more thing on the Chargers-Cowboys game. I think this is an important narrative point. The offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, left the Cowboys, was basically dumped by Mike McCarthy. McCarthy actually kind of trashed him too. And now he's coaching the Chargers. Well, Kellen Moore knows that Cowboys defense inside and out. He knows their tendencies. He knows the weaknesses and the strengths of the players. And also, he's an excellent coordinator. And he's had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And I have to think on a national stage, he wants to show, A, he's head coach material, B, he really wants to stick it to the Cowboys. There are going to be some plays in this offensive play call sheet that are really going to put the Cowboys at a disadvantage. And they do get Austin Eckler back, which is huge news for them. So I think that's an underreported part of the story. John gave you all the trends and the best reasons. I just wanted to add that in as a little bit of icing on the cake.
Good point.
Now, Charlene had a question, the Bucs or the Jags defense. If it's in a regular fantasy league, non-DFS with the salaries out the window, in this case, I think we like the Jaguars better because, again, Gardner Minshew, when he comes in relief, he's not game plan for. But if you game plan for Minshew, we see how quickly he shrivels up. He's at his best in relief. And so I do think the Jaguars, they're bringing some creative blitzes. We saw that last week against the Bills. I think the idea now that they faced them, this is where the advantage goes to the Jags. They faced them a few weeks ago. I think they were stunned in the opener that they came out, the Colts did, in 3 receiver set. I think everybody in the world expected 2 and 3 tight end sets. They know what they're getting now. This is a bad spot. Even though the Jonathan Taylor is going to be working his way back, the Jags will be a better defense. And then we had a question from Trey a little earlier, half PPR, Josh Downs, Atwell, or Dotson. We're going to go with Josh Downs here. As much as I just kind of threw shade on the Colts, Gardner Minshew tends to target Downs very heavily out of the slot when pressure is coming. I think Downs is your play there. Dotson just doesn't have the chemistry going with Howell, and Atwell saw his targets fall to 5 with Kupp back last week. All right, John Ryan, any final words?
Well, as always, I do have a 10-unit play going today. I'm going to have another one going on the Sunday card. So pick your day. Send me a message at John Ryan Sports 1 on the X now, as they call it. And I'll send the information to you absolutely free. And you get to review the comprehensive reports that tell you why this is a 10-unit play and why I'm not just throwing a dart at a board.
And you want to throw out some talk about the predictive playbook?
Yeah, predictiveplaybook.com is a great place to get a lot of analytics that I put out every single day for a lot of games. And you can use it for your handicapping studies on your own. You don't have to agree with everything I put out there, and it's better not to. And then use that information to make your handicapping just a little bit better, and then you'll become a better.
Now, I also put out player props. That's my sweet spot. Those are at Jim Coventry NFL on the X. I do post the rationale. So again, like John says, if you don't like the rationale, don't bet it. But I have 2 different threads up there, and there are 6 bets there. I will be putting a DFS thread out there as well. So you can follow me at Jim Coventry NFL. Charlene said she was sorry for being late yesterday. No, I was early. Yesterday, I had an appointment. I started the show 30 minutes early, tried to post it, but I know don't mess with people's timing. I did that. It was bad. All right. For John Ryan, I'm Jim Coventry. Make sure you're back Sunday for the live stream sit at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us. And everybody, good luck in week 6.